What's going on, Bucs fans, and welcome back to the Cannon Fire Podcast today for episode number 4. We have a very special guest today. We'll get to him in just one moment, but welcome back to the show. As always, I am your host, Rhett, joined alongside my co-host and the best in the business, Mr. Bucs Football, Evan. Evan, you doing good today, man?
Yeah, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right. I'm hanging in there. But as I said before, guys, very, very special guest on the show here tonight. And without further ado, Mr. Derek Old School Fournier for WhatTheBuck.net. And Mr. Derek, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on the show this evening.
No problem at all, man. And Derek, before we jump into anything, just give us a little bit of background on who you are and what the Buck stands for and what goes on over there on the site and things like that.
Sure, love to. We've been around now for about 12 years. I believe we're the longest-running podcast about the Buccaneers on the internet. Started out the same way many podcasts started out. I saw a gap or a void in coverage, and my wife was tired of hearing me bitch about it. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can say that on your podcast.
Oh, no, you're good, man. You're good.
Okay, all right. And so instead of getting her mad at me, she said, you know technology, you have a passion for it, go do something about it. So started the podcast. Found out some like-minded people were out there, and as things happen over time, it evolved and grew into what we are today, which is a podcast that I think is pretty darn high quality. We've got a Hall of Fame tailgate, the largest tailgate in Tampa Bay. We've also got our own 501c3 charitable organization called What the Buck Really Matters. We average about $1,000 per tailgate going to a named charity, probably annually about $60,000 to $70,000 in charitable donations and like-kind donations. As we found out, you can tailgate with a purpose, and so it's been a great privilege to be able to take part in this community of Tampa Bay and try and make it a little bit better each day with friends who share a common love for the Buccaneers, have a lot of passion, and the magic was we found out it's not just about money, it's about time, talent, and treasure. So we get together around our common love for the Buccaneers, we cheer about it, we laugh about it, we cry about it, we drink about it, and then we try and do a little bit of good in the community when we can.
Awesome to hear, man. Doing great things down in Tampa Bay and everywhere there are Bucs fans. WhatTheBuck.net, go check them out. And our very own Evan has written a few stories on What the Buck. Evan, I knew you were going to maybe touch on that a little bit.
I've been with What the Buck, and for about a year now. I believe this is my second season writing for him. I want to thank Derek for giving me the opportunity. As some of you may or may not know, I am just 15 years old, going to be turning 16 here in a couple of weeks, but not many people would take a chance on a 15-year-old, so I'm just trying to do the best I can.
Evan's doing a great job, and it's funny, I for so long we had the site up and it was really just a hub for the podcast, but really over the last 2 to 3 years and intermittently over the course of our lifetime as a website, we've had some really strong writers. We had Adrian Mojica and a couple of others that have gone on to NFL fame. We've got some great ones, including Evan now, and to be honest, that written content has helped us out tremendously as we continue to expand our breadth in Buccaneer coverage.
And looking to stretch that audience, what a way to do it, man. Evan, glad you're pitching in over there and great things going on at What the Buck, focusing around the fan. And before we jump into Cleveland game, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today, guys. We're going to talk about Cleveland game. We're going to talk about maybe some of the people going to be cut, not going to be making that final 53. We'll see what happens, but we're going to talk about the fans first and What the Buck, as you said, a lot of good things happening for and uniting the fans. And this season especially, but over the past few years, you have noticed a resurgence in a lot of fan groups. The biggest one that I can think of off the top of my head, obviously you saw them all over training camp, the stick carriers. Derek, do you have any insight on what all that stuff is about?
I think I do. I've been fortunate enough to have the gray beard of the crowd here, so it's funny when you've been around for over a decade, you've kind of seen people come and go. And what's interesting about the stick carriers and the folks behind the stick carriers, Justin Pulowski, who's been in this area forever, been on the airwaves, one of the guys who I liked a lot on a previous station before he left. These are some passionate folks that have gotten together, they've rallied around, and like any kind of fan groups, there's always, it seems as though anyway, with fan groups of any type, not just sports, there's always some sort of consternation between fan groups. There's the question about who's the biggest fan, who's the baddest fan, who's the most passionate fan, who's been the fan the longest, who's endured the most pain. And the nice thing is, as groups evolve, all of that stuff, if it's gonna stick, all of that stuff just sort of gets weeded out by social Darwinism. And so I've been fortunate to talk to Justin and his captains at the stick carriers. I was there at the the training camp takeover, where I thought they did a hell of a job, did some things I'd never seen done before. And I think their goals are pure, which is to change the game day experience for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, there are those out there, sayers of nay, who are, on one far side, dropping accusations that are unfounded about ill-gotten gains or money or stuff like that, which, that stuff happens to everyone. It's petty. I just write it off. I know the guys. I know what they're doing. And then there's other ones that are concerned about bravado and chest pounding, and that happens in every group. The reality, from my perspective, is like I said, the Graybeard is they've been able to galvanize a group of the fan base that we haven't even touched in many cases, and we've been around forever. And so if that's going to get people out to the game and cheering and making it a better experience for everyone who's there, I'm all for it. And I've been involved with now 2 of their major events, and they've been phenomenal. So if we can take the atmosphere that we've had at our tailgate for the last, 8 years we've been doing the tailgating out of the 12, if we can take that and extend it through the game day experience in stadium and make Raymond James Stadium truly a stadium that is hard to play in for opposing teams, I'm all for it. So I want to do hats off to all the folks who are getting passionately behind that. And like I said, we did the preseason pillage, I guess they called it, last weekend for the Cleveland game, and it was a lot of fun. It was a good time, even though there was some sort of shenanigans with security not letting us down and stuff like that. Those are the bumps and bruises you have when you try and change culture, and it's just not that big a deal. And then the fact that people are fired up about it is silly. It'll be fine. The passion's there. Now the Bucs have to do their job and get wins, because with any new thing that's incubating, and that's really what this is. It's an incubation phase. If the Bucs go out there and drop a turd for the first 6 weeks, that passion's going to dissipate. It just is. That's the way it works. So.
Oh yeah. But you're talking about the passion. You're talking about spreading the passion of a community as the Bucs. Through Raymond James, there's a lot of other groups doing it, even nationwide. Another one that pops into my head, the Buckaholics. You see these guys all over the place, and in many other states. I know they've got big bases out of California and Arizona, at least what I've seen on social media. But you look at the Qualcomm Stadium game last season. Half the stadium, if not a little bit more than 50%, was all Bucs fans, and that's simply through the power of uniting a community and getting the word out there, getting people hype. And I can say, just looking at it, as long as I've been a Bucs fan, this is probably the most fired up I've seen people about this football team in a very, very long time. And what you guys are doing at What the Buck, the Buckaholics, Stick Carriers, all of that, to bring together the community as you were talking about, it's a great thing to see, and it's a great way to get people excited for football.
It's really a pretty unique thing. I was joking around with the guys before the game this week. It was super hot out there. We had a storm rolling in, as you guys saw. But before the storm really cooled things off, it hit earlier, but it just did that Florida thing where it just took the temperature, increased it 2 degrees, and made the humidity 14 trillion%.
Oh, good God, man. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But for the first time in a long time, I love going to the games. I love the game day experience. I love our tailgate. I love football. I'm sick that way, right? But the reality is I hadn't wanted to get to the stadium fast like that in a long time for a preseason game. And so I was up there waiting and talking to some of the other guys that are there, and that passion spreads, right? We talked about it a little bit on the podcast last week where we had Keith Larson from the Buckaholics, we had Justin Pulowski, we had Christian from Headlines Barbershop as well. What happens is, let's say that you got 350 or 400 people that are rabid. They're members of each of these groups, right? They affiliate loosely with those groups because that's the people they know. What happens is all of the passersby see that, they sense that, they hear that, they experience it, and they're like, man, these guys are having a blast. They're having fun. Can I do that? And people are just opening their arms going, yeah, get in here. You can spell Buccaneers, right? Come on.
Yeah.
And so you see what the ability to do what happened at Qualcomm, right? The Buckaholics are phenomenal. I tailgated with them in Arizona. I know a lot of the Buckaholics. I know all the captains. They're great people. And the fact that they could go to a visiting stadium and turn it into a home stadium the way we have seen done so many damn times in Raymond James Stadium was great to see the shoe on the other foot. So the hope would be, can we get enough Buccaneers fans? And I want to reemphasize this because this is one of those bones of contention that everyone tiptoes around. I don't care if you've been a Bucs fan for 3 days or 30 years. If you're a Bucs fan, you're a Bucs fan. So for all you guys out there, and I'll make a dated joke. You guys are, I don't know how you are, Rhett, but I know that Evan's too young for this reference. I don't want to hear people talking about, I like Depeche Mode before Violator, so I'm a better fan. Shut up. Who gives a shit how long you've been a fan? If you're a fan, be a fan. It'll come out in the wash, right? Your passion will come out in the wash. If I look down and you've left the game when there's 6 minutes left, I get who you are, right? I understand who you are. That will come out.
You hear they're giving away Depeche Mode tickets on the radio right now, actually. The past few days I've been driving around hearing they're giving out tickets for Depeche Mode. Are you going to the show?
Dude, listen, if I could get to a Depeche Mode show again, it would remind me of the old days when I went to Information Society and grad night in 1989. So I would love every bit of that. As I mentioned, I am old as crap compared to you guys, so you're not scaring me with Depeche Mode references, brother.
That's why his nickname is Old School. Derek Fournier, pleasure to have you on the show, man. We're talking about the Bucs. We're talking about the community. If you guys are just now coming in, maybe skipping through the show a little bit, that's fine. Do whatever you got to do. We're just talking about the fans, how excited people are for the season, and how infectious this Bucs fever is. And I hate to use the term Bucs fever. Every time I think about it, I think about that cheesy commercial with Lovie Smith. You know what I'm talking about? Is it serious, Doc?
Yeah. I remember.
Oh.
Yeah, they were not good commercials. But the Bucs have been victims. Probably a bad word. They've chosen poor marketing approaches a number of times. I know that's one of the things that Justin and the stick carriers rail against. In fact, there was a big. I haven't listened to this week's Bucs Uncensored, but I know he's railing against the music choices in the stadium, and a lot of that is subjective, right? I mean, everyone digs different stuff. That's why we have a live DJ at our tailgates, because if you play one genre of music, people invariably are going to hate it. No one's going to like everything. Not everyone likes Siege Today or It's a Bucs Life or any of that other stuff. You're never going to find that perfect, motto.
Happy medium.
Yeah, you're never going to find. Well, if you find the happy medium, right, then you're going to a lowest common denominator. So you're going to immediately chop off the passion side.
Yeah.
So
play it safe.
You've got to have something that polarizes. People are going to love it, and other people are going to hate it, but they're going to remember it. Mm-hmm. So it's always tough to do. But no, I agree. The Bucs fever thing is really palpable. There's a lot of excitement. And, everyone's talking about what they look like on paper, what they could be. And that's why you see these sort of bipolar posts all over the message boards. And, again, here's where I'll play the calm, steadying force that I'm trying to be right now. Please do not start telling us to blow up the team after the performance with Cleveland last week. Please do not start talking about how terrible the offense is or how terrible the defense is or how terrible anything is. Just watch the game. Watch what they're doing. Coach Cutter uses these preseason games as practice against people he doesn't mind hitting. That's all this is. Yes, he would prefer to score on offense. Yes, he would prefer them not to score against the defense. But if he has to choose a play call or a set of plays to highlight a player he's looking at to make a cut or no-cut decision, he's going to do that, guys. He's not game planning. So just step back from the ledge, stop being a reactionary clown, and let this team get to the first week. Now, after Miami, if they go out there and lay a turd and can't score in the red zone and lose a close game, Nick Folk turns into Roberto Aguayo, can't kick a field goal, whatever, then we can start raising hell. And you guys know we all will. But until then, Jesus, step back.
And we're talking about the fans and the reaction to the Bucs, something a lot of people don't need to worry about yet. Yeah, I think, I've noticed a lot of people seem to forget, and it's said over and over again, it's said every year. But at the same time, every year I see these articles that say, is it time to start worrying? It'll be the second week of preseason, and we'll have two drives with the starters on the field, and they'll talk about worrying about this team, worrying about the pass rush. That's a consistent topic every year. We're talking about the fans. We're talking about how mad they get. But really quick, guys, let's touch on some football. Let's finally talk some football here on the Cannon Fire podcast. Evan, I know you got a lot of insight. We're going to be talking about the Cleveland game. That was a loss. Second loss of the preseason brings us to 1-2 in Ray J. Unfortunately, couldn't seal the deal in the home opener. But Evan, let's talk about some of the things you might have noticed or some of the bigger things, and then we'll just kind of pass the ball around and talk pros and cons of that Cleveland Browns game.
Yeah, well, you mentioned passing the ball around. I think that's what Jameis Winston did fairly well on Saturday night. A lot of people say, Jameis didn't have that good of a night. I look at the stat line. I think it's a pretty good night, besides, obviously, one interception. Of course, it came in the red zone, and it wasn't a very good throw at all. That can't happen, but, of course, they're going to clean it up. There was a little contact on Cameron Brate there, but that happens. But I look at the stat line, 17 of 27 for 200 yards and a pick with a 70% rating. I don't think that's horrible. Now, I mean, I thought that, obviously Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson not being there really hurts. I think Mike Evans more than anything, because I think we really found the value of Mike Evans. I mean, even if it is a preseason game, the offense just wasn't the same. I mean, Chris Godwin, Adam Humphries, Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard, they moved the ball. But it just, when it comes to red zone, I think Mike Evans definitely helps out in the red zone, and Deshaun Jackson's the deep threat. So that really helps. But also, Doug Martin didn't play that much also. And the one play that he did, the one good play he had, was called back for a hold. And, Jameis Winston actually said that in his press conference. He said, we didn't do bad. He said, but we just had a couple penalties that really took us back. And, I trust Coach Cutter that he's going to clean them up. The team wasn't... with Lovie Smith, they were undisciplined. That was the biggest thing with Lovie Smith. You'd see definitely at least over 60 yards a game just in penalty flags for the Bucs, and that wasn't the case. The penalties really went down last year, and if they continue to go down, this team's just going to get better because penalties really wipe out big time plays like the Doug Martin play. That was an explosive play, and it just got wiped out by a penalty. So, but I trust Coach that he's going to fix that. The other thing is, I look at the defense, and I don't think they did a horrible job. Third down needs to get better. Third down conversions. Kaiser really lit them up on third down. But, when I look at the defense without Quan Alexander, without Gerald McCoy, that's the linebacker of your defense in Quan Alexander, and your best defensive lineman in Gerald McCoy, along with your best run stopper in Will Golston, and your best cornerback in Brent Grimes. I think the defense did a fairly good job. Against Kaiser, I thought, Levante David's tip to Vern Hargreaves, I thought that was a beautiful play, beautiful read by Levante. And then, of course, I got to touch on, before I hand it over to Old School, I got to touch on Nick Folk, finally making all of his kicks. That's what we wanted him to do, and I think the Buccaneers hopefully can breathe a sigh of relief.
Evan, I think I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rhett.
Sorry about that, man. Now, really quick, Evan, you had talked about the red zone threat of the receivers, of Mike Evans and things like that. One thing I wanted to say that I did notice. Now, I was at Winghouse watching the game. It was quite the atmosphere in there. I was in there for Mayweather McGregor. They had us packed in there like sardines, but they did have the game on when we got there, so I was happy about that. I was watching the game, and one standout on that offense, Chris Godwin had a hell of a game. Dirk Cutter came out and said Chris Godwin played like a number one receiver, and he had a good night. We were missing Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson. Godwin stepped in and showed that he not only belonged, but that he's capable of stepping into a starting role this year. Should it happen, let's hope not, but should it happen, he ended up playing 42 snaps, and this is all courtesy of ESPN.com. Apologies, I did not mention that before. He played 42 snaps on offense, 57% of the game, more than any other receiver. He was targeted 5 times, managing 4 catches, including a 19-yarder on the opening drive. He also had 2 16-yard receptions in the second quarter, including one that set up a field goal by Nick Folk. So I had noticed throughout that game, Chris Godwin came out and played like a second-round draft pick, and that's something we really need there when people talk about that red zone threat. Mike Evans might being out, Deshaun Jackson maybe being out in the future. Just a good thing to see. Something I wanted to point out. Sorry about that. I'll throw it over to you, Mr. Derek.
No, it's all good. I think Godwin's contribution was stout. I think that Evan covered many of the bases incredibly well. When you look at who was and who was not playing. Now, that is not about making up for losing. That's not the point. The point is, you have to know what weapons are on the field to know what weapons you're evaluating. And we didn't talk much. I don't think you said a whole lot about the offensive line, but there was a bit of a patchwork offensive line. Not to mention the fact that it played, to be honest, I thought Donovan Smith didn't play particularly well. He had a couple of times where he got made to look stupid. And the upside to that for me is I know that Donovan Smith physically can play the position. The video clip that Baldinger has been throwing around and Myles Garrett getting a nice deep dip of the shoulder and getting around the edge, Donovan just played that poorly. Right, that snap, he played poorly. He got off his base, he punched early, he got off balance, and he got beat. It'll happen. It'll happen more this year. I guarantee it. It'll happen to every left tackle in the entire NFL. That doesn't make him a bad left tackle, but what we did see was we saw, once again, the inability of the offensive line as it was presented to generate consistent work on the ground. Without consistent work on the ground, play action doesn't work. They went to that play action reverse boot play 5 times, worked the first 2 times to get little screen dumps. Now, that play also has a backside tight end 9, right, that they try and set up if they've got time, but it wasn't there. And then the other 3 times it got squashed, once I think leading to a fumble. What that speaks to is a lack of play calling creativity, which is exactly what you'd expect in a preseason game. Mm-hmm. So don't be surprised. The folks who got in there, I thought Reedy showed out really well. We've been talking a lot. I was talking a lot with Real Bucs Talk on Twitter before the game about who that fifth wide receiver spot's going to be, because there's a couple of these positions that are really tough. Fifth wide receiver is a tough one for sure. Linebacking stack is tough as well, and defensive tackle is tough. Fifth wide receiver, everyone's just giving it to Huff, and I guess I'm the only guy in the world who just doesn't think that guy can catch a cold. He's fast and he's athletic, but I don't trust him with a football anywhere near him. Now, I don't really care who they pick instead of Huff, to be honest. Martino, Reedy, Bobo, Darrell, I don't care, right? Any of them I think are going to give us a better all-around football player, and that's not saying Mike's a bad guy. He's probably a super nice human being. I just don't want to play football on the team that I love. So, but Reedy got a chance, got some looks, made the most of them, and also did some great things on special teams. I think he may have cemented a position on this team from what he did. So, and again, you guys already talked about Folk. We also saw, the MVP of last year, the mighty Anger, dropping the ball wherever the hell he wanted to. So I thought in general it was fine. I know that Cutter was pissed off about the lack of pressure, and I think that's because there has to be a cultural change here. This defense has to ascend to the point where they don't care who's lined up. If 93 is not there, so what? Right? If you're in there, Clinton McDonald, if you're in there, Robert Ayers, if you're in there, Will Golston, if you're in there, whoever, George Johnson out there fighting for his life, going back in after getting injured, you've got to get pressure. You've got to get upfield pressure. And by God, you've got to make your tackles. That's one of the things with Beckwith, who I think is absolutely a great raw talent. I can't tell you how many times that kid makes the right guess, gets in the right place, and then doesn't make the play. That's okay. He's a rookie. Get there fast. Fail fast if you have to first. But in those film rooms, he's got to take on what Quan did, where he's in the film room as early or even earlier than Jameis Winston. And when you have a chance to make the tackle, damn it, make the tackle. Right? So that's my takeaway. And you saw the older guys on the team doing the things they do. You saw Levante David always in the right place, making the plays, tipping the ball. Right? Those are the things that have to spread to everyone on that defense, and the offense has to have the same analog on their side. So, in general, I didn't think it was nearly as bad as everyone said. I haven't watched it my second time to do my analysis yet, but I watched it pretty damn intently the first time, and I thought it wasn't nearly as bad as people thought. I want to see some points, but I know that will come with play calling.
Yeah, sure. And I agree with what you said about the O-line, the play calling consistency. Of course, Cutter's not going to run the same play 5 times a game. Even if it works the first 2 times, he's just not going to do it. That's not how you win football games, because defenses eventually, if it works on you twice, the defense is going to catch on to it, and they don't want it to happen a third time. But what I want to talk to you about is really, you said about tackling. Justin Evans, see, I saw on Twitter that you had a bit of a problem with 2 pass interference calls or unsportsmanlike conduct calls against Justin Evans late in the game. What was that all about?
Well, I think they were crap calls. I don't think Justin's had a particularly good preseason. I think he's one of those guys that is exactly what he looked like on film, which is he is aggressive, he's fast, he's incredibly athletic. He has a nose for the point of contact. But those 2 plays in general, I thought were just bad calls. I thought that the contested play in the end zone was ridiculous. He has a right to the ball. And the one earlier I didn't think was defenseless in any way, shape, or form. Now, I think they're a far cry from what you saw Burfict do, who just got a 5-game suspension.
Oh, yeah, they slapped him on the wrist quick. They were fast with that.
Well, when you're a bad guy, that's what happens. That's why I love my Bengals fan friends, Houday Baby and all those guys. I love them. They're passionate, and I know that they defend VB all they can. But listen, he's a dirty player. I don't like it. I wouldn't want him on my team. And so if you're going to do that, even if that one, because he hit shoulder to chest, he still hit him while he was in front. The player wasn't looking at him. It was away from the ball. It was an unnecessary contact. It's almost like a crackback. And it's just stupid. The things with Justin Evans were bang-bang plays at the point of contact, and there was a change in level by the offensive player on the first one. So it's just one of those things where I think the refs are throwing the flags. Prematurely is not the right word. Prophylactically is the right word, but that's probably the wrong word for a sport podcast. But they're covering their own asses by throwing these flags, and they're hurting the game. And so the challenge is with Justin having not had a great preseason. It looks bad on him. Now I think that the defensive staff will look at that and go, "This is crap. These 2 are bad calls." Just like Coach Carroll did back when they implemented the Hawk defense in Seattle, and they called that a number of penalties like that on their defense. And the Seahawks were able to contest it to the league and get fines overturned because they were totally legal. So I like the aggression by Justin. I think we got good clay in Justin Evans. They just got to turn him into a real sculpture.
Now, we're talking about, at the moment, sorry to cut you off, Evan. If you want to go ahead, you can.
No, you're good.
Now, we're talking about, standouts, Justin Evans, maybe touching on the rookies just a little bit. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about this 53-man squad. The cuts are coming up, and they're going to be here before we know it. The unfortunate truth is going to be that a lot of our favorite players, a lot of the people we've come to see, especially on Hard Knocks, are not going to be on this team. Maybe the practice squad. But the cuts are coming, and just to kickstart this conversation, I'm going to throw down two names. You might know who they are. You might know that they're coming. It might be fairly obvious, but we're going to throw it down. We're going to discuss. We'll kind of throw the ball around again on this topic. Two names. First name being Jeremy McNichols. The running back out of the 5th round is very, very, very close. Very close to getting cut. Very close to not making it, I should say. I don't want to say getting cut. I don't want to jump to conclusions here. But Jeremy McNichols, and we look at Riley Below, the linebacker that has really made a presence of himself on Hard Knocks. Let's talk about those two guys. A lot of people maybe might be a little more emotionally attached to Riley at the linebacker position just because of how damn funny he is. But you look at Jeremy McNichols, someone who the Bucs picked up in the 5th round, hoping to maybe pack on the same effect as Charles Sims, someone we thought had the raw talent, and he's made a lot of mistakes on offense so far. I wouldn't say special teams. He seems like he does okay on special teams, but a lot of mistakes by Jeremy McNichols on offense so far. How are you guys feeling about this 53-man roster, and who do you think is going to be cut, someone that we wouldn't expect?
Well, I mean, I look at, Jeremy. I liked it. I liked the pick because I felt that they need to draft a running back at some point during that draft. I was a fan of Brian Hill I'm not sure. I believe with Wyoming, but he was picked actually like 10 or so picks before the Bucs picked by the Atlanta Falcons. I was really a big fan of him in the 5th round, but they went with McNichols, and I liked the pick. He looked to be promising, and there was times at training camp where he's flashed. He's shown some nice cuts, but I just when the game comes on, he's nowhere to be found. I believe his longest run this preseason has been 11 yards, and he hasn't gotten that many carries. That's not a good sign. But the thing I wanted to point out is a tweet I saw from Greg Allman, who always puts out good stuff. And he said in the tweet, he just said in first 3 drafts, Bucs GM Jason Light has had 5 draft picks, all 5th round or later, that never played a snap for Tampa Bay. And that's not, I mean, you try to point out to me a team that has hit on, every single 5th rounder or later, because honestly, many times some teams just cut their 7th rounder every single year. It doesn't matter who they are, unless they're lighting the world on fire. It just happens. Excuse me. With Jeremy, I think he has potential. I think he's going to stay on the team for now, at least. I really think so, because I think that the Bucs will see the potential, and I just think that, Light definitely doesn't care. He doesn't care. He will cut McNichols no problem, because we saw it with Austin Seferian-Jenkins, and we saw it with Roberto Aguayo. We've also seen it with all the guys that he's cut in the past. Joey Iasefa, Robert Herron, Kenny Bell, those guys he's cut ties with because he was wrong, and he's admitted his mistake. So I think he's not afraid to do that, but I don't think the Bucs will need to do that. Now on to Riley Bula. Then I'm going to pass it over to Old School for his thoughts on the 2 players. I don't think he's going to make the team. Maybe practice squad, but I would like to see him make the team because he brings the energy that you want to the defense, especially on Hard Knocks. They've really been making him a star on Hard Knocks, and definitely a fan favorite. So a lot of fans are going to get angry, but I just think that the linebacker depth with Beckwith, he's going to make the team, and I think Darius Glanton is going to make the team, and I only think they're going to keep 5 linebackers, so I think that last job could probably go to Devontae Bond if he's healthy. Cameron Lynch is also another guy to keep your eye on, but right now, I'm going to say keep McNichols and cut Bula.
All right. So it's interesting. I didn't think that McNichols had as close a chance to getting cut as he seems to after what Cutter came out and said recently, right? And not because I thought he'd played particularly well, but going into camp, all I heard was how McWeapon was going to take Doug Martin's position and all this other stuff, and I didn't understand it. I haven't seen him do a whole lot. Now, that's not necessarily a slam against the kid either, right? He's a rookie. But when you're a rookie, you have to be spectacular, and he hasn't been spectacular in the small things, and you have to do that in order to get an opportunity to do the big things. It's almost like when you go play pickup games at the YMCA in basketball, and you're not 6'8", right? You go, you set picks, you go and you rebound, you do all the dirty work, and then you get a chance to shoot. It's the same way when you come in as a rookie and you're not coming in as the O.J. Howard who's going to come into a starting position. So I think at this point, Jeremy Nichols, unless he goes and lights the world on fire in Game 4 and does something that they just are like, oh my God, this is an innate ability that we can't hide on the practice squad or whatever happens to be the case, I don't think he makes this roster. I think we have more talent in front of him, and I don't think this team is interested in incubating him because I don't think he's discernibly different than Peyton Barber, who I know that they like, and there's not a financial difference between the two of them to speak of. On the linebacker stack, though, Riley has been turned into a star by Hard Knocks, and Hard Knocks does that. And I'm not saying that as a negative on Hard Knocks, but it is entertainment. And Riley's an entertaining guy. He's bright. He's well-spoken. He's a tackling machine from a good program. Got good parents that he can put on camera. He's entertaining on the mic. He's clearly a leader on the field, without a doubt. The difference between he and McNichols is when he's on the field, he makes plays. Not once, not twice. Every time he's on the field, he makes plays. That linebacker cut is going to be tough. And, Evan, I think you really nailed it when you talked about injuries because Devontae Bond was having a great camp. And now with the injury, I'm not sure what's going to happen. Darius Glanton, every time he gets a chance, he does what Riley Bullough does, and he goes and makes plays. I think that Riley Bullough makes it. I think that Richie Brown, Jeff Knox, Cameron Lynch, those guys are going to miss out because of the leadership capabilities that Bullough has and the fact that it isn't just noise, right? There's noise, but there's also action that follows. No to McNichols and yes to Riley.
I could definitely see it. Hard Knocks, they do it. I would like to actually see a Hard Knocks, a semi-Hard Knocks star, Maurice Fleming, back on the practice squad when he returns back healthy. Obviously, we obviously know that like the first four spots are clean, locked in for the wide receiver spot. Now I just want to move on to like cornerbacks, as I was talking earlier. Jonathan Moxey, he's likely to be cut. Josh Robinson, I believe, is playing safety now. So who do you think, Derek, ends up winning the nickel spot? Because McLean looked pretty good on Saturday night, and Javian Elliott has flashed at times, but hasn't shown up in games as much as we would like, and Ryan Smith just got picked on Saturday, even though he had a pretty nice anticipation play, but wasn't able to come up with the pick.
I think Ryan Smith's getting unfairly beaten up. He got pushed off 4 times. And if he wasn't Ryan Smith, if he had a different name, he would have gotten some of those penalties. He needs to make those push-offs more obvious and get a little bit more physical, but he was playing pretty damn good position against a very talented receiver, being thrown dimes by a quarterback that half the town couldn't name. Those were really, really good throws that were getting tossed over his head. So I got no issue with Ryan Smith. I think Ryan Smith is a no-brainer on this team. I think he provides good depth. But on the Moxey comment, it's funny because Moxey in camp every once in a while will show up, but I don't think he's done enough to make us think that we're safe there. I do think that McLean has. I think McLean is a no-brainer at this point. And the trick about Javian Elliott is when he's in, he seems to find a way to find the ball. And those guys are really hard. You don't coach that. I know that sometimes folks have thought that guys had that nose for the ball. I can't remember who was the Gator that we had 5 years ago. Quincy? No.
Quincy Adams?
No.
Quincy Black?
No, Quincy Black was a linebacker. He's a DB. He's a Lakeland kid. Anyway, he had a nose for the football. But
Ahmad Black?
Ahmad Black. It was Ahmad Black. That's why I screwed it up because I had Quincy Black on my head. It was Ahmad Black, absolutely. But no, I mean, he had a nose for the football in NCAA, but it never really translated to the NFL level. I think the interesting thing we're all going to see on this roster is where this team feels as though they're trying to find insurance for injuries. Because there's enough talent where like 5 of the main positions, you have a really hard argument on the last person that they're going to keep. But I think McLean's experience, he's cagey. He can play a number of positions. He's shown he can play those positions effectively. And when he's back there, he communicates well. And right now in that secondary, the biggest problem that we have is not people's ability to run, people's ability to break the triangle, people's ability to backpedal, people's ability to read the offense. It's people's ability to talk to one another. And so I think keeping a vet in that spot who can communicate and know what the hell the defensive call is, the coverage call is, make the adjustments when they're called in, I think it's incredibly valuable.
Rhett, you got anything to say?
Nothing on this situation at the moment, man. I've actually been checking out some of the stories coming up this week, some of the headlines in this week, and we'll probably wrap up with these points. We'll do last words, and then we'll just kind of make our way on out of here. But I wanted to talk about some signings that we had just picked up. The Bucs did sign Titans defensive end. I don't even know how to say this guy's name, to be honest with you. Mehdi Abdismad? You guys know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Kind of?
I'm just not good with names, though. Not really good with pronouncing stuff, so.
I got you. But former Boston College and Titans defensive end, we just picked him up. Looking to get some healthy depth for Thursday's preseason finale. The Bucs have signed former Boston College and Titans defensive end Mehdi Abdismad to their 90-man roster 6 days before they'll cut down to 53 players. Abdismad, 25, was cut by the Titans last week. He spent all of his rookie year with Tennessee, first with 3 months on the team's practice squad, then 2 games on the active roster, registering 1 tackle before going on injured reserve with an ankle injury. The Bucs are a little short-handed on end, so it's actually good to see these guys coming in and bringing depth and hopefully a little more competition for those 3rd and 4th spots. How do you guys feel about the signs? I know we signed one other guy. Let me try and find his name really quick. But you look at the signing, and then you look at just where we need help in our positions. A lot of the battles still going, heading into this last game against Washington. I apologize. The Washington Redskins at Ray J. God, I just had a brain fart the last 5 minutes. You look at these signings. You think it's going to create a better situation for the end? Not that it's a bad situation, but maybe a little more battle for depth there, or at least the 2nd, 3rd spot.
I can't claim I've seen either of these guys play a single down, so I really can't weigh in on whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. I know that our depth at end is not great. We got guys that range from really serviceable and better than serviceable. That's a slight. Will Golston is a hell of a player, but he's not the Noah Spence, the Jack Smith. He's not that kind of player. What I hope he can evolve into is a Michael Bennett kind of player, because I love Michael Bennett ends, but he's not there yet. So he's got to get enough burn to do that. Ryan Russell is built similarly to Will, just not quite as beefy in the muscle side, and that took Will some time to put on. So what you're left with is sort of this crapshoot. I heard Jack Smith said his recovery is going well. I'm scared to death of a speed end who's had multiple knee surgeries. I don't believe that you've come back from that and still have that same capability. I hope he proves me wrong. But the Bucs, fortunately, schematically, can make up for some of those things. What I think Jason is doing is what he's done a great job of in the past, is he's fishing, and you never know when you go out and you drop a line, every once in a while you're going to pull something big up onto the boat. So I would expect to see those guys get a lot of burn. We know what the guys on the roster now can do. We've seen them. Many of them are in this program for more than 1 year. You feel bad for a guy like Lambert, who hurt his wrist pretty bad apparently in this last game, because he was playing his ass off. Not an end, but one of those guys who's a great rotational player. So you got to replace a guy like that. He's super flexible. But I think you'll see the new guys. You'll see a lot of the names that you don't recognize out there, so that the coaching staff can get some tape on them and see whether or not they think they have the raw material to make a difference. And I wish I had insight on them, but I don't.
Oh, I feel you. I didn't even know what the guy's name was until 30 minutes ago, unfortunately. Hate to say that, but, Yeah,
I'm actually with old school on this one. I don't have much on this guy. I read the story. They do need edge rushers, and just like old school said, it does scare me about Jaquiz Smith. His knee injuries. It's not good for an edge rusher, and it's a shame too, because I think we all can agree here, and I think that the Bucs even agree. When healthy, Jack Smith's a force. He really is. I think he's a very, very good football player when healthy. The only problem has been he hasn't been healthy the past, the week one. He was, I believe it was a torn ACL, it was a torn ACL in week one, and that was it. And, he only got to play not even a full game. I don't even think he made it through the first quarter of that game. So it would definitely be nice to see Jack back. Not trying to rhyme there, but they signed these guys just to get one last look at them. Like you said, they'll probably play a lot on Thursday night against Washington, and let's hope that they show some sparks. I still think Ryan Russell has some potential. I think Ryan Russell, his best game was the game against Seattle last year. I think he performed very well. I believe he had a sack off of a stunt. I believe he perfected the stunt perfectly, blew right by a lineman, was able to get to Wilson. That was by far, in my opinion, the defense's best game of the season, by the way. They just completely went down Seattle's throat and just buried them. Noah Spence, I think, is going to improve, but also he's got to stay healthy. He's coming off shoulder surgery, so we got to keep an eye out for that. The D-line is very good when healthy. Unfortunately, Robert Ayers got injured last year. Gerald McCoy got injured last year. Will Golston got injured last year. Noah Spence got injured last year, but played through it. That's his toughness. And Jaquiz Smith got injured last year. So, they have a very good line, but if this line doesn't stay healthy, they're done. And, without a pass rush, you can have the best quarterbacks in the league and best safeties. I'm sorry, but without a pass rush, when you can't get there with four guys, you don't have to do it consistently. Just do it, once a drive. Once or twice a drive. Mike Smith likes to blitz, but, with Quan Alexander and Levante Davis' athleticism, they can get to the quarterback quick when you blitz. So they got to get there with four men, and if they don't, then the cornerbacks are going to be toast, and everybody's going to be saying that Grimes' game sucks, but really the most important part, in my mind, of a defense is the pass rush. You saw it in the Seattle game. They were all over Russell Wilson, and what did it do? The Seahawks, I believe, were like 1 for 11 on third down, and Bucs got 6 sacks, and they were just they made Wilson get in his own head a little bit because they were after him the whole game, and it really helped out the secondary. So I agree with most of the points, but I still think, it sounds like we say this every year. I think they need edge rushers, and I think one's going to come in the draft. I think they're going to target a lot of defensive players in next year's draft.
A lot of defensive players, a lot of pass rushers, as you said. We brought it up before, man. It's a topic every single year. Something that's brought up every single year. Every year I talk to someone, they say, this team will be great if we get our front four working good, our pass rush looking good, things like that. Great point there, Evan. And guys, at this point, we've really touched on everything. The last thing we can talk about is the upcoming preseason game. That's going to be this Thursday, the 31st, 3 days from now. And Ray J, the Bucs will be taking on Washington, hoping to get that last preseason win and set the tone for week 1. Anything to look for in that game?
Look for guys on the bubble. Obviously, look for Jeremy McNichols. Cutter just said he's for his job, in Tampa, and I'm sure Jeremy, he'll get another shot somewhere else. But definitely look for that. Let's see. Look at the corners for the nickel corner spot. This is going to be probably the last look. Hargraves probably won't play, but I'm sure McLean, Elliott, and Smith probably will. Hopefully Fitzpatrick can look good. Obviously, Sefo Leifau, he's a long shot to make the team.
No, he's not going to make the team.
Yeah, it's a shame, and I'm pretty sure. I don't want to speak for Derek, but I'm pretty sure he feels the same way. It's a real shame that Ryan Griffin got injured because I was really looking forward to seeing what he could do, and I thought, I think the Bucs thought this too. He had a legitimate shot to beat out Fitzpatrick. But obviously got injured in the first preseason game, so it didn't show you much work. But when he did, he was productive. And I think it would have been nice for him to be healthy for this game, but unfortunately it's just not going to happen. So you're going to see a lot of Fitzpatrick, a lot of Sefo, and Peyton Barber. I doubt you'll see any Jaquiz Rogers. Maybe Charles Sims for a play or two, maybe. But then, just like Derek kept saying about the fifth wide receiver spot, Bernard Reedy, Freddie Martino, Josh Huff, Bobo Wilson, this is it for them. Especially for guys like Bobo, Darrell Walker. Those guys, they're fighting for their spot on the roster, as well as Martino and Reedy. But Martino and Reedy could be signed back to the practice squad. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see. Old school, what are you looking for?
You described it best. The bubble guys have got to put good tape up, whether it's for here or somewhere else. The receiver stack is an obvious one. The cornerback stack is another one. I want to throw a name out there. No one's talking about Vernon Harris. Vernon Harris has shown up when he's had an opportunity at training camp. He's got very good reaction time. He's very aggressive. He's very much a cornerback in the style that Mike Smith likes in this defense. Now, I don't think there's enough spots for him on the bus, but I think that a guy like that can put up some tape that can turn some heads. I think that you also have to look at what's happening with the fat guys, right? Offensive line depth is always a risk, and to be honest, we look really, really thin, pardon the pun, or irony, depending on your perspective, with how that's going. I know that we seem to be comfortable going with the sort of the blue-collar center where you go with Marpet in the middle and Evan Smith and Joe Hawley, but that's an incredibly undersized middle of the line. I love all three of them, right? I think Allie's a beast, and I love Evan and Joe, but the combination of Joe's injury issues, both Joe and Evan's age, means we've got to look at some of these other guys that are on this roster and see who may be, the seventh or eighth offensive lineman and who might have the talent to swing around and play those positions. Ryan Fitzpatrick has to do something that makes his team feel like he is a capable backup. I know they feel like he is. I haven't seen him prove that he is yet. He looks very uninterested in football, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. If Ryan Griffin had not gotten hurt, Ryan Fitzpatrick and his majestic beard would probably not make this roster.
And big things on the line heading into Week 4 of preseason against the Redskins, once again at Ray J. That game's going to be at 7:30 on the 31st of August. A lot of big things on the line. A lot of guys hoping to make that final 53, even the practice squad, just to prevent getting cut outright and getting a chance somewhere else. A lot of guys want to prove themselves to the coaching staff and the fans here in Tampa. But guys, that'll just about wrap up the show for this week. Any last words?
Nope, not really. Just want to, none for me at least. Just want to thank Derek for coming on. What the Buck tailgate, I believe, will be starting Week 2 versus Chicago. Am I correct, Derek?
That's correct. We do not tailgate the preseason. We're still getting things lined up. We expect a massive tailgate for Chicago. The stick carriers are going to come over and participate in our tailgate. And, I've talked about it on Twitter all the time. Our tailgate's been open forever. So everyone is welcome, but it's more of a unification thing that we've been doing with Justin. Buckaholics are already a part of it. I have no idea what our numbers are going to be. We typically put around 500 through that tailgate. I'm going to guess we'll get double that for the Bears game. And it's going to be a great time. So we're looking forward to doing that. Pediatric Cancer, One Voice Foundation is the charity that week. So all the net proceeds will go to One Voice. We are also collecting some funds for Tears for Texas, our friends in Houston. We just put that donation button up today. So what we're doing is collecting money if you want to give us money, or Walmart gift cards, or clothes, or anything. You can get a hold of us and one of our sponsors and drop the stuff off, and we're going to get it all sent out to our friends in Houston. I saw that J.J. Watt has raised over $500,000 already for these folks who have rivers that are normally at about 5 feet deep that are running at 50 feet right now. So our thoughts are going out to Houston right now, as we're one big family.
And I had checked right before the show, actually, J.J. Watt had posted something on Instagram. I think it was a tweet also, but they're up to about $820,000 right now in just a little under 26 hours. People giving money to these people in Houston. Like you said, a lot of people have been living in these communities for over 20, 25 years, never seen an ounce of water on their street. Wake up the next day, there is a river through their driveway. So a very sad situation in Houston. Our thoughts and prayers are with them, and hopefully things will get better here on out. A lot of great things going on around the Bay to raise support for the people in Houston. I will actually be at the game on the 17th, or not on the 17th, I apologize, the home opener. Yeah, the 17th. I will be at the home opener against Chicago. Hopefully I can make sure to come by the tailgate and do my part, and hopefully give a little bit in that drive you were talking about. It'd be good to meet up with you and talk to you, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And to give you guys a quick overview, we talked about it on our podcast last week, and I know that Justin put it out on his podcast that Saturday. the plan is it's a 1 o'clock game, and that sort of pisses us off because we like having 4 o'clock games early. It lets us get our legs underneath us, but that's okay. We'll make up for it. We're gonna kick that tailgate off, and we usually leave an hour before the game time, right? So we do last call 15 minutes before that. We're moving it back 15 minutes from there. So a half hour before we close, we're gonna do our last call. We're going to do our group picture, and then we're going to collect out there on Ohio Street, and we're all going to march up to the stadium, chanting and cheering and making a ruckus, go through the gate right there on the northeast corner of the stadium, march around the stadium in the lower bowl from the pirate ship all the way back over to the south end zone when the team comes out, and it's just going to be raucous, man. It really is. I have no idea how many people are going to be there. I know that Justin is pumping this up. I know the Buckaholics are pumping this up. I know that what happens is when you have a mass of people doing something, it grows. It spreads. And I really think of all the stadiums I've been to, and I think I've hit about 20 now, I've never seen that sort of thing happen. I've seen it in soccer, right? Soccer fans have this crap down. Orlando City's got it. I know the clubs in Europe have it. Their ability to in a very fan-friendly way, march and cheer and create that energy. We had a Cleveland Brown fan in the middle of us in the tunnel, and she was cheering for her team, and we cheered back at her, had a great old time, gave hugs. It was awesome. It was everything you want in a sporting event, right? It was passion and angst and excitement, and I think that's what we're going to have for the home. So I'd love to see you guys out there. It's easy to get to, 3316 West Ohio Avenue. If you don't know about it, get to whatthebuck.net, click on tailgate. All the details are there. Donation driven. We'll take all the money you'll give us because we do a lot of good with it.
And I actually hope to. I'm coming down to Tampa for the Week 10 game versus the Jets. Hoping to be able to get down to the tailgate. But you mentioned whatthebuck.net. Keep an eye out on whatthebuck.net periodically throughout the season. Just like Derek had mentioned, we do writing. I'm writing. I normally do during a normal game week. Normally do 5 bold predictions for that game. It starts. That'll start for Miami, which will be out sometime next week. And after the game, I do most impressive and disappointing. But we also got a lot of great writers there. John Hinkle, D's Bucs. It's the same guy, but he's just known as D's Bucs, and a lot of other good writers. So definitely check out whatthebuck.net for tailgate information, and also check out some articles as well. You won't be disappointed.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that'll just about wrap up the show. Mr. Fournier, thank you for being on the show with us, man. Pleasure talking to you today. Evan, it is great to have you on the show, as always. Thank you guys for listening on YouTube and iTunes. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and we will see you next week. Go Bucs. Have a great night.